Well, game one of Carolina's big season coming up, game one of 82. We are taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning as they are headed to the new Lenova Center for game one of 82, as I just mentioned. Tampa Bay coming off of a rather down year for their previous couple years, having a record of 45, 29, and 8, 98 points total. They had 291 goals for, 268 goals against. They have some new faces coming into the lineup, though. The biggest acquisition being Jake Gensel, who's going to be playing on the top line with Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov. And tell me that's not the very dangerous sounding line. I'll tell you that for free. We go down the rest of the roster. We got Brandon Hagel, Anthony Cirelli, Mitchell Chaffee. My apologies if I mispronounce any of these names. Sometimes first time seeing it. Connor Geeky, who's a new acquisition. Nick Paul, Cam Atkinson, who was there on I believe a PTO, ended up making the
think
team.
so, yeah.
Gergensen, Glendening, Sheary rounds out their forward lineup as well too. So definitely some new faces for Tampa this year. I don't think their forward depth is nearly as good as it was last year or years in past, but the acquisition of Jake Gensel definitely makes it interesting for Tampa because they had the hottest power play in the NHL last year. So I'm going to pass it over to you. How are you seeing this offensive lineup in comparison to what they've been years past?
Well, from what they've been years past, it's definitely different. I definitely think they're lighter than they have been in a long time. I think when they made their cup runs, they definitely had a sturdier lineup. They had a lot, more guys that were, bigger, stronger kind of thing. But they're definitely going in the skill direction for sure. They lost, Stamkos, who, realistically, we could call him a power forward. He's over 6 feet and, he's got some weight to him. So, and he's very obviously highly skilled. So losing him is huge for
Really
them.
good skater too, which makes
Yeah,
it elite
he's
with
the
the
whole thing.
size. Yeah.
Yeah, so he, is, Jake Gensel a one-for-one replacement for him? No, he's not. But Jake brings something, maybe a little bit of an elevation in the I don't even know. I don't know. Jake isn't better than Stamkos.
No.
He's good, but he's not better than Steve. But again, I think they're going to be good. I think they are. I honestly think their defensive core and their goalie are going to carry them this year. I think without that first line, if teams can shut down that first line, the second, third, and fourth line are kind of, well, we'll see. But from how it looks on paper right now, before the season starts, it looks pretty light. So they look very top line heavy. Second, third, and fourth, I think you could roll the dice of which one of those could really be a second line. I think any of them could make a run at being the second line, just depending on who's producing. But I think they got worse, definitely. But I do think with Vasilevsky still there, Hedman still there, Kucherov still there, I still think they're going to be a contender for sure.
The thing that scares me with this team is, yes, they may not have the I guess firepower that they've had in years past. And I kind of put it down as they have outside of that first line, which I don't foresee. Maybe for game one, maybe the game that we play them, they have Gensel, Point, and Kucherov together. But I don't see those three sticking together the entire year. I see Cirelli probably moving up into that first line center role, Braden Point taking that second line with Hagel and Chaffee. I could see Atkinson moving up the lineup. I could see Connor Geeky moving up the lineup. There are a couple players where I could see some shifting going around even before game one, even before we see them in Carolina. The thing that scares me with this team, though, is they're fast, especially against Carolina's system that can kind of, as we saw last year in the New York game or New York series, when teams can play with speed through the middle of the ice, and I think all four of these guys can play with some speed through the middle of the ice, it can break down Carolina's system. But I think in comparison to years past, they have one probably a really true first line. And then outside of that, they got 3 third lines. So whether we can shut down that first line, I don't know what the secondary scoring is going to be for Tampa this year. We'll see in game one of this to come. It's kind of hard to do a preseason or a pregame review when you haven't seen the team play yet. So, once you have the full lineup of guys in, you're going to get a better understanding of it after game one. But what we'll do is we're going to move right over into the D pairings, which I will read off to you for Tampa. The top pairing as of right now, what it has listed is Victor Hedman, JJ Moser, And then we have second pairing, Ryan McDonough, Eric Chernak. And then the third pairing is Darren Radish and Emil Lilleberg. Again, probably
Mhm.
mispronouncing that last one. But I do agree with you. I think this team's gonna be heavily dependent on their D playing really well, them shutting down teams. In years past, they've been an offensive powerhouse. I think this year they're gonna have to really hone in their defensive game. This is where we're gonna see whether or not, I'm not saying John Cooper is not the real deal coach. He is 100% the real deal coach. It's whether or not he can get them to play a different style of hockey in comparison to what they've played in years past, because it's going to be a very defensive style. They're going to win games 2-1, 3-1 a lot of times if they are winning games, because I just don't foresee them scoring as many goals as they have in the past. Now, granted, power play being the power play and adding a piece like Jake Gensel, kind of a one-for-one swap in that regard with Stamkos in the offensive production side of things, but you're also going from a right-handed shot to a left-handed shot. So you're losing that one-time ability. So does Gensel slide right over onto that left side on his kind of in a power play situation? I'll call it the offhand because you're not a one-timing threat. Or do they put Gensel into that bumper position where he was in Carolina and move Braden Point out to that outside to kind of still alleviate some of that, or that give you some of that need of that one-time option that we saw last year? Stamkos scored a bunch of goals on the power play due to that fact. But I'll pass it over to you, kind of let you get the rundown of the defense as well too. What are we seeing? I think the addition of Ryan McDonough is definitely going to help them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna help. I mean, he's obviously familiar. He won the cup there. Did he win 1 or 2 cups there? I
I
can't
want
remember
to
if he
say
was
only
there.
one, but I could be
I
wrong
thought
in
so
that. He might
too.
be
I
there
thought
for
they
both.
thought they brought him in the year after they won the first one, but maybe
I think
not.
so
Maybe he was there
too.
for both.
No, you know
Um,
what? I think he was only there for the first cup. I don't think he was there for the second one. I think
oh,
they
and then they
lost him
shifted
in
him
the
out after that.
offseason. I think because he was free
Okay.
agent. I could be wrong in that though.
Okay. Well, either way, cup winner, Ryan McDonough, you know, uh, it's tough with like you look at, I mean, I guess we call him an older defenseman now. He's an older guy. I mean, is he what, mid-30s at
30,
this point?
33, I want to say.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
He's still, got a couple years for sure. Um, yeah, I think I think their forwards got quicker because they got younger. I think their D got slower.
I don't disagree
So
with you.
I think they definitely their D core got older. I, and maybe, I know they kind of did this for a cap dump kind of thing, but you know, I think getting rid of Sergachev is going to really hurt them. I think he was, I mean, he arguably was one of their better positionally sound defensemen that they had.
Mhm.
Like, he was so good in his own zone. He could transition the puck. He can skate. He can do everything. You know. Now, whether or not they miss him that much, because if they bring in some other guys that can, and I think Tampa too is kind of in the same situation a little bit that Carolina's in. They're in a transition period at this point where they're kind of in a gap in their, I guess, with everybody. Realistically, they have a lot of new faces this year for sure than what they had in years past, and especially with the decor. I mean, you still have Hedman, so you don't have to worry about him. But I think they have 3 guys that are coming back, and then 3 kind of, I guess, new faces. With one of them being McDonough, who's been there before. But I don't know. I think they got slower. I definitely think that this is going to be the year that is either going to make or break Vasilevsky. He's either going to walk out because he's seeing 60 shots a game, or he's gonna embrace the, seeing 60 or 70 shots a game. It feels like, he's either gonna lose his mind or he's gonna win the cup for him. So I think that's one of those where you never really know. But yeah, their decor's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but they definitely got slower.
Yeah, and again, I don't disagree with you. I think Sergachev adds a massive component of the ability to headman the puck, where what you're going to get out of a Ryan McDonough, who's kind of, I guess, the one for one replacement. If you're really looking at it, he's very good at headmanning the puck. Still, you lose a lot of that foot speed, and what you gain in return is he will eat pucks like nobody's business. I mean, he blocks
Yeah.
shots like it's going out of
Mhm.
style. He's a really sound PK guy as well too. I think they were struggling with Sergachev on the penalty kill side of things. And I mean, I hate to say it, they just didn't have the money or the cap space in order to pay Sergachev what he was looking for, and or to keep the contract, I should say, because he was traded with a contract on him.
Yeah.
But they were trying to free up cap space in order to make room for a guy like Jake Gensel. And I mean, they brought in their guy that they felt like they needed, which I'm just now reading now. He is day to day, so we might not even see him game one. So that could make a
Helpful.
world of
Yeah.
difference in the Carolinas regard. But just to kind of give a last point on the goaltending, Andre Vasilevsky, in my opinion, is still the best goalie in the NHL when he's on his game. I don't. I think Shesterkin's probably right there as a close
Mhm.
second. But when Andre Vasilevsky's going, I would take him over anybody in the NHL because he's just big, he's flexible, he's agile. The issue with him is that I don't disagree with you, Cam. I think he gets tired. I think he
Yeah.
runs out of steam a little bit, and I think that's where having a backup like Johansson, sorry, good God,
Yeah.
Johansson, who he played a good chunk of last year when Vasilevsky was coming off back surgery, and I thought he looked really good. I mean, I didn't think he
Good.
was bad at all. He kept him in the hunt until Vasilevsky was able to come back, and then once Vasilevsky came back, kind of took over that starter role.
Mhm.
Took him a little bit of time to get readjusted, but you know, if they're going to go far, it's going to be between the pipes is what's going to carry them, in my opinion. I completely agree
Yeah.
with you in that regard. So if Vasilevsky kicking and he's doing what he can do, Tampa's still a playoff team, in my opinion. If not, they might be on the bubble, could even be on the outside looking in.
I was about to say if Vasilevsky's not going, they're on the outside looking in. There's no
Yeah,
way. I don't think the offense, they don't have the firepower that they had, 3 years ago,
no,
even 4 years ago. I mean, they've shed a lot of those, like, mainstay guys that you think of when you're like, "Okay, hey, if we need a goal, we can count on," you know 3 years ago, it was like we can count on him, you go down the line. Now it's like you count on Kucherov, Gensel,
Gensel, point. I mean,
Point
point a little bit
Point,
of
yeah, so
50.
those 3. So
Yeah.
those 3, and then outside of that, I mean, Hagel,
Sorelli, yeah,
Cernak, like,
Sorelli's a good guy. I mean,
Pirelli,
Sorelli's
I
a good
mean,
player.
kinda, that's kinda, but again, it's kinda like and we'll get into the Canes here in just a second, but it's a situation where they're kinda just, they're kind of in a weird spot where they're obviously not rebuilding, but they're retooling, and they're trying to find young guys that are gonna fill big shoes. That's what
Yeah.
they're trying to do.
The big
So,
difference between them and Carolina, though, is they don't have the prospect pool that Carolina
I
has.
I don't
So we're
believe
able
so.
to we have a year, I think, where we're gonna be, I think, right back into a good spot where I have a feeling Tampa, if it's kind of one of those things that they're just gonna keep trying to retool. But I
Like
don't think they're
Pittsburgh?
ever gonna solve their issue. Yeah, kind of a better version of Pittsburgh, in my opinion.
Better for now, yeah.
Yes, yes, 100%. But we'll table that for now, Tampa for now, and then we'll switch over to Carolina. Carolina's forward lineup, from at least what we've seen so far. Again, we know Rod; he doesn't like to change much, so I'm predicting that this will probably be the opening night roster as well too. First line of Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, and Jack Roslovic. Second line of Jesperi Kokaniemi, Martin Necas, and Andrei Svechnikov. And then third line of Jordan Stahl, Jordan Martinook, and then on the other side, William Carrier. And then the fourth line, as of right now, looks like we're going to be seeing the debut of Jackson Blake, and he's going to be centered by Jack Drury, and then the other side is going to be Nick Robinson. I like our forward group a little bit more every day that I see it, especially if Blake turns into what I think he's going to turn into this year, because I think he's got really, really strong offensive upside where Carolina's been struggling a little bit offensively, especially later into playoff rounds when it gets tougher. Adding a guy like a Jackson Blake, yes, unproven, still a rookie, never hasn't done it yet, but from what we've seen from him so far, I think he adds a lot of texture to this team that it's in desperate need of, and it gives it a little bit of a different flavor of sauce, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that it's definitely a new look. Obviously, I think the team would look different if, Fost was healthy. I
Mhm.
think Fost adds a huge piece that I think the Canes kinda missed a little bit last year in the playoffs. Um, you kinda hope that somebody can kind of carry that torch a little bit,
I think
maybe
it'll
it's
be William.
Carrier or
Yeah.
yeah, you never really know, but I don't again, I don't hate our forward lineup. Obviously some guys left that, it's kind of hard to fill what, one guy in particular, kind of hard to fill what he does, but they'll definitely, and I think we talked about this last week too. I feel like this is kind of a little bit of a gap year for the Canes. But again, we might be underestimating everything that this team can do. I mean, these guys might all come in and overachieve. We have no idea. Jackson Blake could come in and have an absolutely unbelievable season.
Yeah.
We don't know. Robinson could be the same way. Drury could take off. Like that could become our third line easily.
So
You know,
that's my big goal is that we're still a very young team. When we really look up and down the lineup, I know we're not considered a young team anymore. Aho's only 27 or 20, yeah, 27 now. Svetch is 24. Kokaniemi's 24. You got Jarvis,
Jarvis
who's
is 21,
22,
22,
21 or 22, one of those.
Blake's
Jackson Blake's
21.
21. I mean, we have a lot. Jack Drury's only, I think, 23 or 24 as
23 or
well,
4,
too.
yeah.
We have a young offensive core to where if they make that next step, which we are in need of them doing, because like I said, losing Gensel was a big, big piece to lose, especially for what he did in the short period of time that he was here, because he created a lot of offense on our front end. But I think if we can get the production out of these younger guys that we're expecting to get out of them, especially an Andrei Svechnikov and a Seth Jarvis, those two guys are really what I'm honing in on this year. And I think that we're going to see it in game one. I think we need to see it in game one. We need Svechnikov to take over. We need Jarvis to take over. We need Aho to be Aho. We're missing Teravainen, who's a massive piece of the puzzle, missing as well, too. I think we have guys that can fill that role and can do what Teravainen does at the level he does it. I don't think so, but still do the job that he did in that regard. What I'm fearful of, though, is I guess I just hope the power play can get going, because I think we had a good power play last year. The year before it was bad. The year before that it was good. It's always been this kind of rotating cycle. I think Tampa's probably going to take some penalties game one. How many they take, I'm predicting probably in the 3 to 4 range, just based off of the lineup. It's younger, it's inexperienced in some ways. Granted, adding pieces like Atkinson, Sheary, and Gergensen, they're veterans. They've played in the game a while. So, what can Carolina's power play do? Because I have a feeling that the 5-on-5 play might not be as wide open as we think it's going to be based off of years past us playing against Tampa. I think they're going to be a very tight structural team this year. I think defensively, they're going to have to be very tight and structural. So I see Carolina getting about 40 shots this game, Tampa getting about 18. I still see it being a 1-goal game.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that too. I mean, and like you said, I mean, it's just, obviously Gensel was a huge piece last year that added that. It felt like, we added a guy that's like, oh, okay, if we need a goal, get Aho and Gensel out there, and you were probably getting a goal.
Yep.
That's kind of how it was. Even if Gensel didn't contribute
directly, he
directly
made the
to it,
play
by
happen.
being out there and being a threat causes everybody on the other team to look twice at him rather than just kind of looking him off. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't hate our lineup for sure. I definitely think and that a lot of people are underestimating the Canes for sure. Well, at least I hope so. I hope that we're underestimated because I definitely think we're going to be good. But again, we'll see with the forward lineup. It's just a matter of continuing to push forward, and then you need the young guys to step up. The guys that have been here a while, like Svetch, Kokaniemi, Jarvis, Natchez, really. I mean, hopefully Blake, Drury needs to step up. Brozovic, hopefully he can step up a little bit too. I know he's his first year here, but it's about who's going to step up and who's going to step up at the right time too.
Yep.
So that's really the biggest thing.
Yeah, you know what? This team Carolina's forward group almost reminds me more of not the first season we made it back in the playoffs, but that second season where it was very hard for checking. Everybody in the lineup was getting offense done. It wasn't a one line kind of carrying the load. It was all four lines contributing, producing. I think the biggest ad that we're going to see, and I kind of made this prediction when we went in our first episode, I think William Carrier is going to bring a lot to that third line, and it's going to open up a lot of space for both
Mhm.
Stahl and Martinook. I foresee Martinook having another good year offensively. I know last year was a little bit of a downturn in comparison to the year before, but I could see Martinook going back to that, scoring 20, almost 25 goals, especially when he's not having to carry that forecheck the same way that he was in years past, because you have a big body in William Carrier who's willing to do that role for you. And he's willing to do a lot of roles, and he's also got some offense to him. So, that third line added a big piece to it where I think I love Jesper Fast. I wish he was in the lineup because I think he'd probably be on the fourth line right now, and he would add a ton to that fourth line.
Mhm.
But I think what William Carrier adds that Jesper Fast doesn't is the physicality aspect of it. Jesper Fast, while being probably one of the smartest hockey players I've ever seen play the game, he's always in the right position. He's always moving to the correct position. He's always thinking almost two plays ahead. He doesn't have the greatest offensive touch, and he's not the most physical guy in the world. I don't think Carrier brings more in the offensive touch department, but where I think he brings a ton is in that physicality department, to where Carolina is going to get a little bit meaner this year, which I like to see because I hate to say it, we get bullied out of playoffs. I feel like every year. I feel like it's
Mhm.
it's more of a bullying than like a good series that goes down to a game seven. I feel like whenever we lose, it's like the other team's just pounding us, just
Yeah.
beating the wheels off of us, and we just have no response. And I think Carrier adds a little bit of that flavor to it. And we'll move over to the Carolinas defense. So top pairing. I mean, we could told you this 2 weeks ago what the D pairing was probably going to be, but there's Slavin and Burns as the top pair. Second pairing is going to be Orlov and Chatfield. Third pairing to start is going to be Shane Gossespur and Sean Walker. And then in net, we might as well just throw these all into a blender. It's going to probably be Freddie Anderson starting. He's been in the starter's crease for the past couple days. Thank you for the report, Walt Ruff. We appreciate that. But Freddie's been in the starter's crease. I don't foresee him not being the starter for game one.
Yeah. No, I mean, defense again, I don't it's tough because we definitely lost some size with Pesci and Shea.
We
I
gained a lot
don't
of
think
speed.
we gained a lot of speed, especially yeah, we
Sean
did, we
Walker
gained
can skate like the wind.
he
Ghost is a
can.
really good skater as well too. Where I think we struggled with that with Pesci in a sense. Shea was always a smooth. He was kind of a stallion moving up the ice. He was always a
Yeah,
smoother
he
skater.
was he was a smoother skater, and I think and again, I think we kind of are well, I hope we aren't, but from what I can see, I think we're gonna miss that just defensive zone kind of anchor with Pesci. That's kind of what he was the best at,
Mhm.
was in his own zone, especially in the penalty kill. Like, he was one of the best penalty killers we had,
Yep.
for sure, and that's a huge miss for sure. So, hopefully either, Walker or Gostisbehere can kinda fill that role. I don't think Gostisbehere, I think
I
Walker
think
would
it's
be the
going to be
guy.
more Walker. Yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, I mean, Burns is great, but he's not very good on the penalty kill, so we need to get, somebody else in there for sure. I think Chatfield is really good on the PK, Slavin, obviously, I think Orlov's really good, and then I think Walker can definitely fill in, so, Slavin, Walker, Orlov, Chatfield for our PK pairings, 60 seconds each, that'd be perfect, I think, but who knows? It kinda depends on where we go, and then the goaltending situation, I mean, like you said, we could have told you who was going to start after, I don't know, after last season ended.
After
Like,
we re-signed Freddie,
that's what
basically.
I mean. Like, it doesn't, like, we kind of knew this. I wish it was Kochetkov. I really do. Cause I definitely think that he is where the team is heading. And I think with the lineup we have, with how young it is at this point, I mean, I would give him more of a role than I would give to Freddie. Then, I'd let him play over 50% of the games, whereas in years past, he's kind of held that under 50%, especially last year. I mean, last year he probably played more than 50% just because Fred was hurt for most of the year. Um, and he showed he could carry it, he could do it. And, he's really solid. But yeah, it's going to be Freddie for sure in the starter's crease. And yeah, goaltending, I don't worry about. I think our goalies are pretty solid. I don't really worry about them too much. Didn't lose any big assets there. And then with the D, yeah, I mean, with the D, we'll kind of play it by ear, but we don't really know at this
Yeah.
point. Well, hopefully they're good, but we'll see.
All right, we'll wrap it up with a couple final questions. First thing, what do you think is the most important thing to take down Tampa game one?
It's going to be shutting down that first line. If they can shut down that first line, then you'll really get like a litmus test of how good Tampa actually is. You know, if you shut down that first line and the second, third, and fourth line absolutely torch us, fair play. Like, fair enough, you know? If the first line gets 0 points and the rest and they beat us 5-0, then hey, fair enough. Like, you kinda, you kinda
That's
tip your
probably
cap
more
to
of a
them.
Carolina playing
And
poorly
that
than a
yeah,
Tampa beating
exactly.
us in that
So, you kinda
situation.
tip your cap and are like, "All right, fair enough. You know, we shut down your top line. We didn't think you had, we didn't know you had game like this, so here you go. Fair enough." I think that's the biggest thing is just shutting down the first line. And then also not letting Vasilevsky get hot is also a big thing too. If they can bounce on him early and get a goal on him early, that tends to help
Yep.
for sure.
Yeah, my big thing was going to be getting the eyes in the kitchen of Andre Vasilevsky early and often. He's one of those goalies that you let him get hot, he'll steal you an entire game. He can steal you a playoff series if you let him get
Yeah.
too hot. But you have to get to him early and you have to get to him often. Don't let his job be easy. Don't allow him to see pucks early. And the one thing I hope Carolina takes from last year's New York Rangers series is towards the end of the series, they stopped throwing pucks just at the net just to throw them at the net. They started trying to maintain a little bit more puck possession. And I hope we see more of that because I think that's where you start to beat these really elite goaltenders is when you're not giving them the opportunity to see 20 shots before you get a grade A. You can't give them that opportunity because by that point they're locked in. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
They'll be happy as can be if Burnsy's just firing shots from the point with no direction and no screen in front because that's an easy save for Andre Vasilevsky. Now, if we get in front of his eyes and we get to him early and we can pop one early, 100%, you can shake his confidence early and you can have a good game after that point. I think my second point will be, yeah, the PK is going to be very important in this game because Tampa's power play is elite. I mean, Nikita Kucherov, in my opinion, probably should have won the MVP last year, but he's arguably the best player on the power play. I mean, you got Connor McDavid and then you got Nikita Kucherov. I mean, he's right there with Connor McDavid as far as
Yeah.
being a man up and producing on the power play. He is one of the best. And so taking as little penalties as we can, not allowing that power play to get much time. And if they do get time, being able to shut it down is going to be crucial, which hurts when we lose a guy like Teravainen, who was so crucial to our PK last year. But I think we got guys that can fill that role. Jack Drury looks great. Jarvis looks great. Martinook looks great. Aho can play PK. You got guys that can play those roles. Jordan Stahl, I didn't even mention him. I'm sure William Carrier will get some looks in that role. Even Nick Robinson. The other thing I like
Mhm.
about Nick Robinson is he's got a ton of speed too. So you start opening yourselves up, especially with a guy like Sean Walker, who is very, very capable of scoring shorthanded goals, as he scored, I think, 4 last year for the Philly while
Yeah.
he was in Philadelphia. You get guys that got speed, and all of a sudden you can generate some other offensive chances off of those penalty kills. But limiting the amount of power play chances this team gets is going to be the most crucial thing to this game. And then one final thing, I just want your final score prediction. What do you think? What do you think the final score is going to be here? We're going to keep a tally on who has
Um,
the most right by the end of the year and see what happens.
yeah, I hope I don't go 0 for 82,
Oh, for
but
82, that'd be a
yeah,
tough
that would
bid
be
at
rough.
it.
Um, I mean, I think it's gonna be a 1-goal game. I do. I don't think it's gonna be a high-flying, high-scoring game. I'm gonna go 3-2 Canes. That's what I'm gonna go with, 3-2.
OT or just regulation?
Just regulation. I
Okay.
think 3
We're
within
just gonna
regulation for the
we're
Canes.
yeah, we're just gonna keep track of who gets the correct score. I don't really care if it's in OT or in
Oh,
regulation.
okay.
So, yeah, I was just curious more for your concept of it. I'm actually gonna do 4-1 Carolina. They get an empty netter at the end. I think we score 1 early. I think within the first 10 minutes of the game. I think we score 2 in the second because we're the best second period team in the NHL, and then I think we put in an empty netter at the end. Um, but that's our score prediction. Game 1 of Carolina Hurricanes hockey is here and it's upon us. We are ready to go and we couldn't be more excited. Unfortunately, game 2 already did get postponed. We do wish the best for everybody down there in Tampa. We hope that, everybody gets the help they need. Hopefully the damages to everybody, homes and stuff isn't terrible, and hopefully they can recoup and rebound rather quickly. But I do know the game on Saturday has already been postponed to a later date. So Carolina's playing Tampa once to start the season, not twice. So we'll see them, and then we won't see them until a little bit later on in the year. Next game after that is going to be on Tuesday against New Jersey, I think. I could be
Sure.
wrong.
I don't
Anyways,
know.
so we'll leave it there, and we'll see you guys on either Sunday or Monday.